recording. And you've been working on some of those prompts, hopefully. So looking at what's something you're thankful for, something you've accomplished, and a step towards your dream career. And go ahead and post those for us. So thanks for getting us started here, Sharia. So thankful for health and opportunity to get an education. Excellent. What others do we want to chime in there? And let's also put in there about dream careers. So it looks like so far we're a small group today. So sharing with me what your key career interests are will help me on guiding what we're talking about today too. So please jump in and share that with me. So let's see, who else do we have here? And you can do it by turning on a mic or typing in. Joshua Brooks, want to share something you're thankful for or something you've learned? And all three of you that are here with me right now, let me know what your career areas are that are top of your list. There we go, Brooks. I am with you on that. So thankful that 2020 is almost over. So we can hope we're making a change with 2021. So I'm definitely thankful that the weather has not gotten bitter cold yet, so we've had some opportunity to be staying warm. How about areas that you might be interested in as careers? So maybe if you aren't ready to own it as a dream, but some of those areas, and I've framed it today on looking deeper at some of the populations and where jobs are and focus areas in human services. Are there any populations that are rising to the top of your interests? And waiting for your answers here. I'll pull together a poll for you also to give me some more information. And let's throw out some answers for our poll here too. So another way of giving me some idea of what we might be interested in. All right, so those are some that often rise to the top. Okay. Social worker working with children. Excellent, excellent. So we'll have some ideas of how to work with that. All right. I think we might have a few more students coming and joining us. I've gotten some communication. Some people may be having some obstacles here this morning, but I'm going to go ahead and for our recording sake and for our content here today, I'm going to go forward and we'll cover everything, but I'm going to zero in on some of those that you have flagged that are tops for you. So we're going to talk today about careers in human services. Before we get to that, I'm going to walk through where we are at as we near the end of the semester. And as we're talking about these careers, we'll also look at some academic paths for pursuing those before we wrap up. So I'm going to switch screens. And we're going to take a look here in Blackboard. All right, and pulling in under our coursework. All right. At the top, remember, we have our link for our next class meeting, and then we have right below that where I am storing all the recordings from our sessions. If you've not been able to attend a session, that's where you can go in and get still credit for participation. So don't forget that's there. Scrolling on down to our current deadline, we are wrapping up our last module today. So we have module 7 is on populations, and that's what we're going to be zeroing in and talking about today. We have then our project, which is our self-reflection and exploration summary, and that's due December 1st. Our final exam then is going to be opening up November 24th and remain open to December 8th. And the final exam, we'll be having a review coming up for that. We will also, it'll be set up as the prior one, that you'll have 3 tries and the highest grade is what is counted towards your final grade. The final exam covers all of our modules, and that's looks like a typo there. We have modules 1 through 8. We only have 1 through 7. We only have 7 modules. The bottom, there is a link here for any of you that want to participate in our virtual career fair that the college is offering. And I'm going to be referencing some information about that also as we go through our topic today. There may be some things that you'd like to participate in with that. If you choose to do that, come back here and I'll be giving you extra credit by just telling me which ones you attended and paragraph of what you gained from that. So real simple if you want to add some points to your final grade. All right, so I'm going to take us back to our class. And going back to our file. All right. Things that of our final class meetings, we don't have many more class meetings either. We will be meeting next Tuesday. That's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We do hold class, and Michael Fell, a professor with the UNC Greensboro School of Social Work, is going to join us, and he's going to be sharing more about what that career path may look like, and talk about the arrangement that we have with that specific school and how you may transfer to a degree in social work to get a bachelor's in social work. Mike used to also teach in our program, so he's very familiar with both our program and social work path. So a great resource. Looking forward to his presentation, and then he's going to allow time for questions. I'll be putting out and inviting you to pre-share some questions. So that will be posted this week, and please share those with me. I will get those passed on to Mike, so he'll be ready to answer those. We'll certainly have time during his presentation also to answer questions. But UNC Greensboro is one of our local universities, state universities, that offers a bachelor's in social work that Our program has an articulation agreement, which means we have a bridge that your courses can transfer right into that program. We're building a similar program with Winston-Salem State, and currently, while we don't have the official articulation agreement, we do have the path set up. So that's another option to go into social work at Winston-Salem State University. We will, on December 1st, meet for a class and we'll do an exam review. And I think many of you who participated in our midterm exam review benefited from getting a pre-taste of some of those questions and helped you with going in for the midterm. So I encourage you to come ready to maximize your benefit from doing that review on December 1st, and then we'll have a wrap up of our course on December 8th. Deadlines that are out there, just another way of summarizing, Module 7 is what is due today. Your final project, which is that self-exploration paper or summary, that is due December 1st. That's slightly later than what it shows in the syllabus, but December 1st is a deadline, and then the final exam. All right, so let's talk about careers. And some of this was going to look similar to where we started this semester with, that the careers in human services have a range of places that you can build your career on. There's a range of roles, there's a range of private or public sector jobs, there are a variety of ways to find the jobs, and a range of things that employers are looking for when they're selecting human services professionals. So another encouragement that you start looking at your personal game plan on building your career. And I'd like us to think about it as a career, not just what your first job will be or your next job or what you want to be doing when you finish at Foresight Tech, but what you want to be doing through all the steps for your career. Now, the details are not something that you should be figuring out right now, but the idea of visualizing that it'll be stair steps, I think, is an important way to keep thinking about your own personal growth. That you're going to be thinking about what you'll be doing for entry-level opportunities, how those will be a step towards advancing to the next level, and how those will in turn be a step to your next level. And it may look like something also like this, that you may be right here now. There might be things that you can be building on your resume while a student in human services, and we'll talk about and look at some of those here today. Then your bachelor's degree, if that is a route you want to take, can be a step towards advancement. Getting more experience will definitely be a step towards advancement. And for others, it may be getting working towards the master's and getting licensed in a specific path. We previously looked at these slides at an earlier class, and we talked about these terms, associate professional and qualified professional. So those are right here on our slides. Going to just a refresher to remind you that an associate professional is a term used by our state on programs that may be government programs or might be funded by a government program. These are predominantly used in mental health programs, developmental disabilities programs, substance abuse programs and services. And it looks at someone who has graduated with a bachelor's degree. So that's important when you're looking at jobs, that you'll be not yet an associate professional, but you could be working towards that level. The more predominant term that's used is the opposite of a paraprofessional. Paraprofessional is the level that you'd be coming in with your high school diploma or with your associate's degree. And associate going backwards, associate professional is when you complete the bachelor's degree. And then this one here, qualified professionals, important one if you're looking ever at jobs. That is the title that you have to have the bachelor's degree and have built up 2 years experience. But that experience can be back here while you're still working in high school or still working on your associate's degree. It can also be experience that you complete after your bachelor's degree. So anywhere along here can be 2 years of experience plus the bachelor's degree. All right, so those are some of the terms that employers use. They also use a whole range of job titles. There isn't a human services professional job title often or used by an employer. Those are terms that we tend to use more in colleges, but they will use things like direct worker, income maintenance worker or caseworker, shelter director, shelter staff. They may be peer support specialists, psych technicians, mental health technicians, job coach. Those can all be entry-level roles. Then with more experience and more education, they may be job titles such as case manager, although some of those may be also at the entry level. Shelter director, group home directors, supervisor, all things that can come once you have more experience with a certain agency or certain segment of the working with the population. We got a question. Go ahead. I saw it come out, but I didn't see who it was from. Go ahead and turn on your mic or type in the question. Or maybe we just clicked something by accident. All right, so I'm going to keep going, but if there's a question I missed, please jump in and let me know. And then more experience, more education from the bachelor's to the master's level is when you will get into some of the roles of licensure or directors. All right, so remember that we get our skills not only by attending human services classes, getting these courses on your transcripts, but you also get them by growing your hands-on experience. And we do some of that in our classes. You'll do that in your field work, like Ms. Mitchell shared with us last week. But you can also be building it for yourself right here and now in jobs, in volunteer roles. So it is something that you can start taking responsibility and fitting it together as works for your individual plans. You're going to be practicing and building not only formal skills, how to do a crisis assessment, how to fill out casework documentation, but it will be the soft skills. How do we interact with people? How do we support and motivate others? How do we manage and take care of ourselves so we can be present and engaged with those who are coming for help? So what I want to do is dive in and help you fill in some of the missing parts of that puzzle of understanding what human service is by looking at about a half a dozen different populations that you can consider and apply and find career paths in. When I talk about populations, these aren't the only ones, but they're often the common ones that we see in our field. I also often like to know where your interests lie so I can help talk with you right now and build the right information for you. But I also like for you to think about not locking into one of these, so that while you have skills that you might grow or learn in youth work, you might be able to transfer those and work them in crisis work for a next job. So also important to know that just choosing or exploring one population doesn't lock out from later being able to go and work with a different population. Of the populations listed here, I've worked with many of them. So my career path hasn't taken just one focus area, but I've been able to keep building on skills and expanding those populations. So children and youth is one of the areas that I did do a lot of work when I was a practitioner and working in the community. The settings that we work with children and youth in human services have a range. We may be working in before and after school programs. We may be working in alternative schools. The education system is geared for training teachers, and they get a specific education path. So we aren't following that as human services professionals, but we may be complementing that because that's where many children and youth are, geared in our systems work towards that. We may also be working in residential programs. So if a child is not able to safely be in there with their family or the family of origin, we may be connected with those other residential settings. May they be alternative families, so foster care, or they may be in group homes or more of a facility treatment. But our trends right now with children and youth is to do less of the large residential campuses and work more towards smaller or our family structures, or working to help children before they need to change where they're living. So to keep them connected to all their natural sports and their natural family as much as possible. Education for working with children and youth. There are some things that we can do right now with an associate's degree. There's a lot to build a career of working with children and youth in human services that favors getting a bachelor's degree. And a bachelor's of social work is one of those degrees that is favored. We see a lot of our folks that are working, say, in social services, and we think of social services as the child safety protection net, and in foster care and adoptions favors working with a social work degree, but it's not the only option there. Skills for doing well with this area are being knowledgeable about child development, but also being knowledgeable about the range and diversity within family systems, being able to understand or be familiar with the education systems, and child development is valuable there. We do have some understanding of mental health within child and youth. While there's a smaller number of mental health issues that we will diagnose it at child or youth level, understanding those or being familiar with some of those of conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorders, and recognizing behaviors and what drives behaviors of not working with children or youth can be very valuable. Let's take a peek. I'm going to switch screens and I want to show you a couple starting places. They aren't the only places for working with children and youth, but there are a couple that are out there right now to give you some examples of some of the jobs with this population. So I am going to switch screens. All right, and I'm going to go over first to highlight what's happening this week with that virtual career week. So mentioned that it's in an announcement in our class, and there's a place under coursework that you can get extra credit for attending a session. They have set up to have a variety of sessions that you can sign in on virtually. So you would use your computer like we're attending class right now and learn and connect about some immediate job opportunities. And I flag this right now. I'm going to take you to so this link is right here. So this is in Tech Link announcements. If you take that link, it brings us to the list of what is happening. And I just wanted to flag that on here, they've got a couple times, like this afternoon, so at 2 o'clock, there's going to be a half-hour presentation from our local YMCA. And they're talking about some of their current opportunities that they have. Those include before and after school counselors, e-learning counselors. They also have some things related to swimming and sports. But that can be a portal for working with youth. Those would be youth that wouldn't necessarily be to our at-risk or mental health or crisis settings, but they would certainly be serving in as a prevention for some of those challenges. We also have building right now the happening this afternoon is a session from the school system. The school system is sometimes a bridge for our roles in human services. They're going to be much more geared towards education, but they'll have some support roles. So that one might be curious if interested. And then the YMCA is going to be also happening again tomorrow. And let's see if we see them anywhere else. So I just skimmed over this. You can certainly look at all of these in more depth, but I wanted to highlight that they're immediately looking for positions and they're at the Y, and that they're actively reaching out to us here at Foresight Tech. So if that's a curious opportunity for you, please check that out. And remember, I'm giving extra credit for attending any of these events this week. Another organization that is in our area is Eckerd Connects. This is an organization, they're actually about an hour, they have 2 settings in North Carolina, each about an hour from us here in Winston-Salem. They run residential short-term treatment programs. So you can see that they run for teenage boys and girls who have experienced trouble with the law. They're short-term juvenile justice, gender-specific residential programs, and that they're gearing towards the behaviors that have occurred, so that the youth are in these programs for 4 to 6 months. Clicking on the button for their job positions. All right, and I'm going to type in here North Carolina. They have a couple opportunities, so there are 2 locations, Wilkes County, Candor, North Carolina, describing what they have going on there. So again, it's a short-term juvenile justice residential treatment program. They run these programs and they run a shift so that you have so many days on, so many days off. So hence, still an hour commute. It may be something of interest if an overnight type of position is an opportunity that fits for you, and this is interesting. So the position is a role model who guides and influences group activities on a consistent basis and enhance targeting youth confidence and self-esteem. The youth counselors ensure the progress and welfare of each client and the group through their therapeutic programs, and they're responsible for supervision during afternoon, evening, and sleeping hours. Okay. You can read through, if this is interesting to you, of the different functions that they do. But I like to highlight here that the education is that they're minimally looking for someone who has 2 years of college in social or human services field, or has a high school diploma and 2 years prior experience when working with youth. So if you come already to our degrees programs with some experience, you might be currently eligible for these roles, or something you'd be eligible for after completing our AAS degree. So just an example of something that's out there. Not all of our youth programs are overnight, but that's certainly something that is out there. All right, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to pull up the slides, but while I do that, any questions about youth work and where the jobs are and things that you might do to prepare for a pathway?
I got a question, Professor Good.
Yeah.
When you were talking about like the justice system, like working with the kids in juvenile,
Uh-huh.
is it hard to get an internship doing that? Because that's also something that I would be interested doing, or working like, with someone who works with that system.
Certainly. So getting a role as an internship brings some other variables that are different than from being able to get then an ongoing job position. So I want to differentiate if I say that any obstacle, so that we will less likely, currently don't have internships, say at that Eckerd program, because it is an hour away and you're doing part-time for our internships, and they all do a full-time position that the commute might make sense. But in turn, we do have some local programs that work with youth that may be involved in juvenile justice. For example, one of the programs, I think Ms. Mitchell talked about it last week, is we've worked with some of the teen court programs that have been contracted with the YMCAs. I think it was YMCAs, YWCAs here locally. So that's one example that you may be able to do with an internship. So working with youth, as Ms. Mitchell had flagged also last week, it is one of the areas that the agencies start even with interns of doing the background check, so ensuring that there aren't any risk factors that they can't bring into their agency. So they will be more concerned if someone has a recent felony charge, or if there's been anything on the record for violence. Drug involvement, that is often that they want a lot of time since that's been involved. But anything with violence and felonies will get looked at, and also any sex violations. So good questions. Other questions?
Yes, I'm on the scene, Miss Zook.
All right. What's your question, Larry?
I don't know the situation right now. Can this opportunity in the field of work that I don't think it will happen. See, can that help with our class session in my assignments? That if my grades are not where they should be, I want to know if there was a possibility I could get some training in that would uplift my grades and help me with my degree. Would that be possible? Probably not, I would assume.
Let me see if I can kind of break down your question for that. So a specific individual class will have already, when we started the semester, what your final grade is built on. So okay. Those would be still remaining the same. Now in this class, I did flag that I'm giving a few points for extra credit for attending if you're interested in anything on that virtual career week that the college is doing, because I think it parallels what we're talking about. So that's one opportunity. But across the board for any classes, it'll be important that you're familiar and looking back at the syllabus, because that will stay constant for our class or any of your other instructors' classes of what they'll be be grading on. For preparing yourself for career paths, in addition to your classwork, an employer is going to want to know, what classes have you taken? What experience do you have? And what I'm talking about here are things that if you reach out, if you choose on your own to build any career, getting a job, part-time job now while you're going to classes would be something you could be highlighting then as experience. So these are, as we go through our different areas here today, I'm going to be just saying some things that are also happening right now for you to self-select if it's the right time for you to go seeking a part-time job. Here are some opportunities, and that's what that part is. Did that okay? Did that help with your questions there, Larry?
Oh, yes, it does.
Okay. All right. So those were some things with children and youth. Now I want to piggyback on what I was talking about, the background checks. Children and youth and some of the other populations that we'll talk about here in a moment, the employers are protective about anything showing up on background tests. They're going to be ones that are also going to do current drug screenings likely, and are going to be, extra protective of the folks in their agencies and the children that they're serving. Sometimes I recognize that we may have things on our backgrounds that would screen us out and say, it's youth and children that we want to work with, and our reasons for wanting to, focus in on that population is because we've had some of our own personal experiences that we want to assist children with, and not to make, carry, maybe a similar journey or have the similar challenges. What is a opportunity? So let's say you've got felonies on your record. Let's say you've got things that the children and youth programs are saying, we can't go there. Once someone is over the age of 18, agencies shift. So while we know there isn't not as much difference between being 18 and 19, the world and human services world does look at that differently. So that you may instead say, okay, I want to work with young adults. I want to work in substance abuse or mental health. I recognize that I'm going to have some obstacles because of felonies that happened 10, 15 years ago, but then I'm going to zero in on adult work, and you can look at young adult work. So hopefully that was helpful or gave some insights there. So piggybacking on that, another area that we can work in with our associate's degree is substance abuse. And we have a variety of options with this. We've talked about this a little bit before in this class, and I think it's worth emphasizing again, and that you'll dive deeper into this in our substance abuse courses at Foresight Tech, is the distinction between a peer support and treatment. And there are roles for both those focus areas, so that you may be interested in working as a peer support specialist. And a peer support specialist is a separate certification done by our state for someone who has at least 1 year of successful recovery, completes a specific peer support specialist training, along with some additional training hours. And our coursework at Foresight Tech can be those additional hours. And then those roles work at agencies along with the treatment specialists. The other area is to become a treatment specialist. And with our degrees and courses, you can begin the path towards credentialing, which means getting a state certificate as a drug and alcohol, a certified drug and alcohol specialist. Is a possibility. So where do those roles happen in our state? We have community-based programs, we have residential programs, we have outpatient, we have inpatient. These programs will also be concerned about someone's background. They will do background checks, they'll do drug screenings. They do not want anyone who will be actively using to come and be part of their programs. They also will want time between any violations that someone has. But they can recognize that someone who is in successful recovery can be a good role model and bring a lot to their programs. So the amount of time between when someone might have violations is a critical piece for both for the agency, but also for you as an individual. It's very important that you are doing your self-care, paying attention to your own triggers. You don't want your employment to be a new trigger, or you don't want to be able to not help others because of the setting brings back other sorts of issues for yourself. So the education can begin with our AAS degree. You can take it on to 4-year programs. You can work on then to get bachelor's and then a master's degree to become a licensed substance abuse counselor. The skills are going to be a range of things. You're going to want knowledge of substances. You're going to want knowledge of the addiction patterns. You're going to want knowledge of the counseling and interventions, the supportive skills for assisting someone to choose sober behaviors versus the behaviors or environments that were related to using. I'm going to pull up and shift to show you a couple areas if this is an area of interest to you that's going to be valuable to know about. So I'm going to switch screens again. And this time I'm going to go into our module. And I'm going to pull up, I don't know if anyone's dove into this, under the links and documents folder. I'm going to pull up this video here about an agency called Path of Hope. This is an agency that the director has been part of our program and our advisory board for a number of years. She very much likes working with Foresight Tech students because she likes how we train and build our skills with our students. It's an agency that many of our interns have worked at. It's one that you'll want to look at doing 2 semesters as work-based learning, so you can get the minimal 300 hours if you're wanting to go towards a state credential. They also hire people and our students right now, so they have a number of, they do a halfway, a transitional residential treatment program is what they would refer to it, and they have our students may work as residential staff there. Many have also grown into other positions. On the video, you're going to hear from Lamont Joe is one of our former students. He's now the clinical director there and working on his licensure. So let's hear.
My name is Lamont Joe. I work at Path of Hope. It's inpatient, 28-day drug rehab program. I started, was going to school for psych tech. Kind of just, when I first started, I wasn't even for sure about human services altogether. I just heard it was a field to where, you can work in different areas. And one of the executive director from here came to one of my classes at psych tech and was saying that she needed some men to work in the men's residential house here. So I took that full-time job and was doing that. And while I was doing that, I talked to a guy counselor here, and he told me that if I wanted to apply with the state board to be a substance abuse counselor, that I could do it. I was like, okay. So I tried it where I applied, submitted all my information, and they approved me. To empower the clients that come in to want to stay off drugs and want to do something different with their life. Try to send them in a different direction. We want to boost their self-esteem and help them achieve some of the goals they have set for themselves. So we're trying to help them to get on track, and then in return that it helps society. We offer 3 groups a day. They're psychoeducational groups. They vary. We got like 4 different weeks. And we try to offer certain classes. We have healthy relationships, relapse prevention classes, life skill classes. We're hoping that they come from the human service or substance abuse field. Then that way it's not like a blank slate. They do have some type of knowledge of what we're doing here, kind of the goal here. Then that way they can even relate to some of the things that the clients may be going through. If they come from different fields, it'd be hard for them to understand what clients are going through when they're doing the intake process. So we're hoping that they're knowledgeable in substance abuse or the human services field. The passion has to be there. That's the first thing, first and foremost thing. As people say, it's not about the paycheck here. It's about caring for the client. We like for them to shadow first, just kind of get an overall feel of what's being offered here and see if it's something that they're interested in. We let them sit in on the intake process. That's when we have the clients come in and we taking in their information, forming a treatment plan and stuff like that. After they're being probably about 2, maybe 3 months, we'll let them, while we sit in, we'll let them kind of, facilitate the group on their own. And that way they have the hands-on experience. Here at Path to Hope, they are a caring facility all the way through, and I'm not being funny or disgenuine. Everybody here from the top down genuinely cares about each other. Everybody's respectful, caring, and in turn that filters off into the clients. Because we feel like we're a caring family, so when our clients come in, we treat them the same way. We treat everybody with respect, and as I said, that when the clients go back out into the community, they have good things to say about us. So we get a lot of referrals from people wanting to come here because of what they heard in the community.
All right. So
I want this.
I'm going to pull up my files, but let me know your questions about working in substance abuse, and I want to show one other piece. Any questions that video or the paths for working in?
I want this.
You want this? Okay, so you'd be interested in working towards an internship at Path of Hope?
Oh yes, real
Okay.
bad.
Okay. All right. So it'll be important to understand the steps for working for a substance abuse setting. Like Path of Hope is one that is the 2 semesters for work-based learning. So like we talked about in last week's class. So that might be last week's recording, maybe a valuable one to understand the process. So if you wanted specifically something like being based at Path of Hope, to understand that process. Sometimes folks that are interested in working with helping people who are coming through treatment from substance abuse, or maybe not specifically in treatment but have been affected by that, have also liked doing our field work as just the 1 semester model, but doing it at, say, the Bethesda Center or one of the crisis programs working with the homeless population. So they aren't specifically shadowing someone like Lamont and working on treatment, but they're working on supporting people that may have that as also their journey. So the question was, can we also look at this information that we're talking about here? I imagine this class. So this one is going to also be recorded and will be posted. Yeah, so the video that I just showed you from Lamont, that's within Module 7. So you can certainly go back and watch it, just that part. The recording from this class session will also be posted here. It takes me about 24 hours to get the recording queued up and posted. So this one will be posted then. I want to show one other opportunity, a way of looking for some other things with substance abuse. So let me go back to my screen, and that area I mentioned as peer support. So I am on the Indeed job site and going to look at a job I saw just recently posted. They're using the word peer mentor. And I want to look at what this job is. This is a part-time job in their employment program. It's going to be in Guilford County, and they're looking for someone who's had experience with mental illness or substance abuse and would be working then as a peer for coaching and mentoring someone to be able to maintain sobriety, maintain their mental health, while also working with the employment team to help them secure ongoing sustainable employment. This position is one that minimally requires a high school diploma, but also needs you to be currently certified as a peer support specialist. And I know sometimes we have students in our programs that are currently certified, or that could be something that you're working on while working on your classes with us. So that's another type of job position, and I just flagged that because it's one that is just currently posted. Some of our other areas sometimes also have peer support. Let's see. RHA and High Point had one in the last month. To find out more about peer support specialists, I'm going to just pull up the go-to website. I can type and talk. We have a North Carolina peer support specialist certification site, and you'll find that most of the peer jobs want someone certified. This is a site that walks through what the application is, the process. They can tell you where there are courses currently, and there's this 40-hour peer supports training course. It's often operates a condensed 1-week time period. Sometimes they do it over multiple weeks. And then you also need to do supportive classes. Sometimes people will do something called a wrap training. You can also use your transcript from Foresight Tech as meeting that requirement. And then they keep somewhat a job board here. I haven't looked at their job board recently. Yeah, they have some stuff that's recently been posted. Okay. There's a case manager and a peer support specialist for a program here in Forsyth County, just posted recently. So that's another one that might be looking interesting. And these are positions from all over the state. So it looks like they have shelter wraparound staff that was posted at that city with dwellings. So that might be another resource of things that you may look at when considering career opportunities. Okay, so I'm going to go back and go to our next area. Stop me if there's any questions that are coming up for any of the categories we're talking about. Thus far, we've talked about youth and we've talked about substance abuse. Next area I'm going to talk about is working with persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This is also an area that's expanding what you can do currently in entry-level roles. We work with persons who might have an intellectual or developmental disability in residential, day programs. We also do job coaching. We may work in some individual homes. We may also work in some facility-based programs. So there's a range of settings. This may also be working with children, but often predominantly the positions are working after a child has exited the education or the school system. Not the only time, but there we see a lot more supports and needs in some of the funding targeting for someone after they've exited the school system. Someone with an intellectual developmental disability may get supports up through age 22 from our K through 12 education systems. And then after that, we shift into some different funding programs to help with the wraparound supports, the residential, the job skills, and the range of needs. This is an area that is pretty tight on having anything show up on a background check. So they are really protective of the population. Things that would be of violence, felony drug level charges that would be at a felony level, or any sex violations will be deal breakers for being able to get work in this area. If those aren't a challenge or a deal breaker for you, I think it can be a very strong career path if it is of an interest. The education, your AAS degree, can set you very strongly for beginning a career for working with this population. We offer some specific elective courses. So elective being one of you have to pick 5 electives in our human services classes to complete your AAS degree. We offer one called developmental disabilities. We also offer one, and it's offered again in the spring, called supportive employment, which is a great skill set to have for working with this population or doing that prior job we looked at of a peer mentor with an employment skills building job. The skills for working with this population are often a mix of the formal skills and the soft skills. So having strong communication that is not just verbal communication, but nonverbal communication. Having an intention to working with the individual, having the ability to wrap around supports to both the individual and maybe their natural supports, having an understanding of supporting and empowering someone versus being of disempowering by doing too much or doing things for them that they can learn and do themselves. So if this is an area of interest, I definitely encourage you to look at adding a course called DDT 110, Developmental Disabilities, adding a course called Supportive Employment, DDT 230, to your list of courses. You may also enjoy taking HSE 251 Activity Planning, and you may want to get our specific certificate for that's called Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Couple of things that are out there right now for possibilities for employment, and these certainly aren't the only ones. I'm going to give you a look at these. So let me share my screen and flag just 2 ideas for jobs. All right, one of them is this virtual career week that's happening right now at our college. One of the organizations, Horizons Residential Care Center, is a facility-based program that provides supports residentially for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They're hiring right now. Their career opportunities, they have this role called a direct supports professional. You'd be qualified to do this before completing your AAS degree. They also have a position for qualified intellectual developmental disability professional. There's where that qualified professional, that could be a career step for you. If you worked with, say, this organization and go on and get your bachelor's degree, they could then promote you to this position once you completed your bachelor's degree if you'd already accumulated 2 years of experience working for them or with a population at another agency. So they have a session here this afternoon, and I think they have a few more. Let's see. We looked at this already at the Y. They have another one tomorrow afternoon. And I believe and another one on Thursday afternoon. So they're actively recruiting right now. Another organization, I'm going to switch screens, is a place called the Enrichment Center. This is a unique day program here in Winston-Salem that uses art-based mediums for developing skills and programs for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. At their programs, the participants come and develop their own art. They have a photography studio, they have a dance studio, they have a ceramics and a pottery studio, amongst others. And then they sell their art in a gallery there, and the participants also make an income from their sold artwork. So a really unique program that if you haven't heard about them before, it's worth keeping on your radar, checking it out, certainly stopping by one of their gallery open houses when they have those. Things are a bit different now because of COVID, but certainly worth also checking out their website. Scrolling down, they have a couple of different positions operating right now. They are hiring for direct support professionals. These are Monday through Friday daytime jobs. They also are hiring for part-time employment specialists. There's that job coach position. That would be a position that you would be certainly a strong candidate for if you have taken or choose to take our course DDT 230, Supportive Employment. That course is taught by someone who used to be a director at this organization, so she knows the skill set real closely. All right, so just again, some examples of immediate opportunities that are out there. Any questions about that population? And I'll shift. All right. Another setting that may be of interest to you or something to consider. I already mentioned it as a setting that some of our students who are interested in working in the substance abuse arena also have an interest in this area or found success for their passions and skills with working in our programs to support persons who are experiencing homelessness. So these are often a residential shelter, but then the supportive wraparound supports, case management, referrals, supports. In addition, we have some roles working in crisis, often financial crisis. Some of our government programs, like income maintenance programs, so that can help someone get a financial supports through the government WIC programs, the formerly called food stamps, the SNAP programs, the Medicaid, Medicare programs, all have government workers who work with individuals to screen them, determine their eligibility and get them access to those supports. So a range of settings for this skill set. The background, again, there'll be background checks for these programs. They can be a little bit more open depending on how much time since an event occurred and what someone's able to show of their stability and their sobriety right now. There are opportunities to begin working with your AAS degree. There's some opportunities you can start right now. The skill set is really being open to being a go-getter, taking initiative, being able to jump in and be supportive, being very open-minded to the range of people. So these are programs that work very broadly with the public and the community, and needing to be very open to the range of things and needs that the public needs. Going to take a look on a couple roles here, just to give you another way of seeing some of the jobs that are here. Oops, wrong button. Okay, back to sharing my screen. All right, so with the government programs, the income maintenance caseworker job is a position you can apply for with an AAS degree. These are county-run jobs, so we see there's one currently open with Davie County. We also see them sometimes open with Stokes and Surrey and Forsyth County. There are roles then that after having so many years experience as a caseworker, you could move into supervisor roles. And currently there's one posted in Forsyth County as a supervisor. Forsyth County has also had roles for a technician. So they, again, when you think of stair steps for a career path, there can be beginning jobs and then they can move into the next level. So as a technician, to a caseworker, to a supervisor. So if that sort of government work and crisis work is interesting to you, those are some examples. So income maintenance, a caseworker may be something that you plug into when you're looking for jobs. Another area I'm going to show you, Bethesda Center is a place that we've regularly had interns work at. They work in our clinicals program one semester, and as I scroll down at their current staff list, I'm just going to flag Nate here was one of our former students who interned there, who's now the shelter director. Karen Sechrist was one of our interns there who moved into a case manager position. And we've had a couple others in the past that have had their first starts as an intern there and then being able to move into the range of jobs there. So Bethesda Center is one of our homeless shelters in the area. It's not our only one. All right. Any questions about crisis work and homeless shelters? As part of our program, you will take a class called Crisis Intervention. That does an overview of the range of skills, that beginning skills for working in that kind of crisis work, along with working in mental health crisis. And that's my next one that I was going to talk about, roles in mental health. Our systems of care in North Carolina look a lot at the types of supports we can give in community settings, but also in inpatient short-term crisis settings, along with some ongoing day programs or longer-term care. We have fewer and fewer settings or situations that someone is hospitalized long-term for a mental health need, but they might be under care for a longer time period with a range of wraparound supports. We're seeing a lot of attention and growth and need and unmet need in mental health right now across our country. We can anticipate that the demand and thus the settings and how supports are going to be provided is going to be in flux and be growing and shifting and changing over the next immediate months and years. One of those changes happened very quickly, which that much more supports are being provided through a telehealth. So there are more and more licensed therapists that are working via telehealth. So someone would come instead of meeting with them in a face-to-face session with a therapist. They may be doing that session by computer, like we're meeting right now. We're seeing some therapists go back to their offices and having those face-to-face meetings too. What we are also going to anticipate and expand that there will be need and the creation of more non-licensed support positions for working with this need. And I can't name and pick all of those because they're still evolving and creating. So even as we anticipate changes happening with COVID and how our country is able to ramp up more lockdowns and then ramp down less lockdowns, we're going to still see needs and demands for the time period after this. So if that's an interest, that will be certainly something that your education and your skills, it will be important to stay current. Your courses within Foresight Tech are going to be some of your required courses. We have courses you'll take, again, I said crisis intervention. We'll take a class on counseling. You may take the substance abuse counseling class. You may work on some of our courses such as family services, which looks at family dynamics. You may choose, you'll take general psychology. You may choose to take abnormal psychology that looks at the variety of things when functioning is not normal, or maybe some of the mood disorders or the behavioral disorders. So your skills are going to be definitely understanding crisis and being able to work and manage someone being able to go from crisis to protective or safety. Skills also on behaviors, skills on stress management are going to be strong things to have. And I want to show one job position that's currently out there that may be interesting, that we've had some of our graduates work at. All right, so going back to Indeed, and I'm going to this time put in mental health. And top that comes up is a mental health technician, Old Vineyard Behavioral Health Services. Old Vineyard is a treatment facility that provides acute care. They provide some short-term care, and their technicians are something that you can do without a licensed position. So the minimum is a high school equivalent, but they'll tell us they really like someone who has some understanding or background for working in behavioral health. So working with an understanding of mental health and some of the challenging behaviors. How do you get that? Well, it may be what you get of your classes. So if you've taken any of those psychology classes or started taking our human services classes, those may be things you could highlight on a resume. You also could highlight what you may do as an internship. Because of how Old Vineyard is set up, they have not felt as comfortable with bringing on a part-time intern. excuse me, but they are very open to hiring of our graduates. So if this is an area, we would certainly then have some other internships where you could get the types of skills that you could jump right into then a position like this at Old Vineyard. Yeah, so looking down, there's some other things. You'll find in mental health, you'll want to dive in and look at the jobs. Many jobs in mental health are going to want someone who is licensed. That's what this manager position is. But the terms like technician, they'll be able to work with someone with an associate's degree and be very eager for that. All right. Let's see what I have next on our list. Older adults is a strong area. It's a growing area because our populations, we're all aging. So we're finding that we're shifting to having more older adults in our communities than we are younger people. So that's one trend, that people are living longer and living healthier into older age. We're seeing a shift. While we definitely have a range of settings, they may be home-based, community-based, assisted living, or long-term care facilities, but we see a range of also retirement living, independent living. The background for working with this population, we have had and currently have it still open a degree concentration for gerontology. Some of you might be working on that degree concentration, which is instead of taking a range of human services electives, you have very specific gerontology classes that focus in on how to work with older adults successfully. So you learn more about the aging process along with some of the care trends, along with some of the skill techniques. We are making a shift to embed those courses in our generalist AAS degree. So if you haven't chosen the concentration, you may still choose to take some of our courses, they begin with GRO, as your human services electives. You may also then let us know when it's time to do your field work that you want to increase your experience at this population, and we have some settings that our students have worked in. We've also had many of our graduates go on to work in, say, the community programs. We have senior services here in Forsyth County, which is a mix of community-based programs, and many of our graduates are the ones that are directing the senior lunch programs, which aren't just lunch, but they're also enrichment and socialization. We see currently a lot of attention on how to adjust services right now because older adults are a very vulnerable population and for COVID, and the facility models have needed to put in additional care to prevent COVID spread. We have on our course, under that same folder that we looked at Lamont's story about Path of Hope, we have a video there about Shepherd Center, which is a faith-based organization providing community outreach for older adults. I encourage you to, I'm not going to play that one, but I'm going to encourage you to watch that one. We have had a number of our students do their internships with that organization, and we've had some of our students go on and work at Shepherd Center. There's one based in Winston. There's another one in Kernersville. We also are seeing, again, a shift in what's out there for jobs. Often when I would pull up on Indeed, I would put in older adults, and we would see a lot of activity-based programs. Now we see a much more predominant because we aren't bringing together groups of older adults for socialization and activities. We're seeing a shift to doing more right now of individual supports in a home or at a care facility. So if you're interested in employment right now, you may still go to Indeed and type in older adults and find the range there. Older adults, again, like persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, are real stringent on anything on a background check. So they're going to be real attentive if there's anything related to violence or drugs or sex on those checks. And they'll have probably the fewest exceptions that they'll make. And then my last category is corrections. We have also at Forsyth Tech a degree in criminal justice. That is a degree that focuses on the justice system and roles directly for working as a justice professional. But hand in hand, human service professionals are also in those settings. We work strongest, so while the authority police training programs come under criminal justice, rehabilitation programs come under human services. Our professionals may be working directly in the corrections facilities, often will predominantly be working in the re-entry programs. So the transition from someone being incarcerated to being able to be out, maybe on parole, maybe making a step towards being exiting or being out of the system. One of those organizations is Project Reentry. I want to pull up the video and watch it with you and flag any questions with that, and then we'll wrap up for this organization. So I'm going to go switch screens. And we're going over, and it is the one down at the bottom. Let me go back here. All right, Project Reentry. You'll see Debbie on this video. She is one of our graduates. All right. Were you able to see that video, or did I mix a step? Did I lose everyone?
They're not showing.
Okay. All right. My bad on that. Let me make sure I had the sound going. Under the links and documents in Module 7, there's a video certainly to watch about project reentry, and it has one of our graduates on there and walks through what they were doing with their job. So my bad for I thought I had that working. Project reentry is a program helping people who are getting from inside a prison to when they're making the move back outside. They are a type of program that there are other names and other reentry supports. They're one of the longer lasting and ones that is in our community, and they're across the state. Those roles also do value someone who has something, a history of being incarcerated, have a history of something on their background. That's not a requirement for a position with them, but they do value that. They will have limitations like any of our programs of what they can still accept. They're going to not, like any of our programs, be able to accept anyone who's actively on parole or has active charges. They're going to have concerns if there is any significant violence or sexual charges with that. So the substance use charges are a easier one for them to work with. All right. So let me pause and have you give me questions about any of the career paths we talked about and what comes next before we wrap up.
Oh, dang, I'm looking at some of the opportunities here, and all of it identify me as professor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dang, I don't know where to start. Path to Hope. I want to say, as if it's not gonna hurt me, but I want you to know the truth. I was in uh, drug rehabilitation places. I know the effects of what some of the people are going through because I was at Path to Hope once in my life, and to feel the goodness that come out of there is a lot of change. And I noticed the young man that spoke earlier, took the opportunity. It's not about the financing helps, but it's more about the caring, loving. I want to be a part of that.
So yeah,
I really do.
Lamont was emphasizing that was a key part to their success, his success as a professional and their success of their program. So if I'm hearing you, and like I think others have a passion for getting out and being part of some of these programs, and I gave you an overview of a lot of those populations. Some of them might speak stronger to you right now than others on that list, and that's great because we need professionals in all of those settings. My goal with giving this to you now is for you to not wait till you graduate to start thinking about these things. What the jumping stone is it for you right now? It might be finishing your classes successfully this semester. It might prompt you on what you choose for your next classes next semester. It might prompt you to reach out to an advisor and talk about some of these career paths. Some of you, it may prompt you to, like, I'm looking for a job. Now I have certain ideas of something I'm looking for that I could do part-time while going to school next semester. Some of you, it might prompt you to things when it's time to apply for your field work that you might say, well, these rise to the top of interest areas. In our class, you have coming up, well, you have your module 7 to complete this week. So that's the one due tonight. Those were where some of the videos were, and you'll be flagging some of the information we talked about in this class and in your study sheet. Then your next assignment is your self-exploration paper, your summary. And you can use some of these things we're thinking about now to dive in on that project. You might choose something on that list because you found it in our class today, a passion for it. I might have identified an agency that you'd like to reach out to for that project and interview someone for it. So there's lots of things you can do with these feelings and energy and passion that you have for these agencies and these populations. And there's not just one right next step. Any of those could be valuable. So thanks for sharing that, Larry. Other questions? Things people thinking about? Questions about what we talked about today, or questions about what comes next?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, Professor Good.
Yeah, go for it,
What
Confessor.
what what credentials that oh, that was so dangerous. What was the credentials that Lamont just said he had to be a clinical supervisor or director?
Um, Lamont built that from his experience. So um, he was a Forsyth Tech student. Then he went on to complete his bachelor's. He did his bachelor's at Gardner Webb. He has the CSAC, so what is now drug and alcohol specialist, but he has what was a former CSAC from the state of North Carolina, and he's working towards his LSAC, so his licensure.
Okay.
So he was able to do that with his CSAC and I think a number of years experience then of working there.
Okay. Thank you.
But great. So some of those pathways and the next step, so thinking about careers as multiple steps again, are getting a bachelor's degree. One of those that we've mentioned before is social work. It's not the only one, but a bachelor's in social work might be the right one for some of you. Next week, we're having a guest speaker, Michael Thull, from UNC Greensboro's social work program. And he's going to be able to share more what a bachelor's in social work is, what social work is, being one of the human services professionals, and details about how you might transfer to UNCG for that degree. Definitely come next week with questions. I'll be posting a place for you to share questions that I'll have ready for Mike before he comes, along with we'll ask questions in class. In addition to UNC Greensboro, we have other schools that offer social work. So Mike will be sharing from his knowledge at UNC Greensboro, but he'll also share wider about social work. So even if you're not interested in UNC Greensboro, knowing and understanding the field of social work and some of those other opportunities will be valuable. So that's what's happening next week. We're talking about careers and populations this week. That's the subject of Module 7. That's what's due tonight. And then don't put off diving into that final project, the ones that you're going to work on pulling things together with your self-exploring and reflecting about becoming a human services professional. And then that just leaves the exam, folks. So we're nearing the end. I'm going to turn off the recording now and close out class.